In 2012, a woman driving home from her night shift heard a voice on the radio that made her slam on the brakes in the middle of an empty highway. The voice was shaking, whispering, terrified. "Mom, if you're hearing this, we just passed a sign for River Creek. I think Route 17. I love you." The woman pulled over to the shoulder, sat in her idling car with her hands gripping the steering wheel. That voice belonged to her daughter. The daughter who had disappeared 11 years ago. The daughter the police had listed as a probable runaway. The daughter whose case had gone cold because there had been no contact, no ransom, no trace. Except there had been contact. A message sent in the final moments before everything went dark. A message that had been sitting in a forgotten server for 11 years, waiting to be heard. Before we dive deeper into this unbelievable case, if you're new to 72-Hour True Crime, hit that subscribe button right now and turn on notifications so you never miss a story like this. And if you're already part of our community, drop a comment below and let me know where you're watching from. Your support keeps us going. Now let's get into the full story of how a single voicemail lost in the cracks of an outdated phone system finally brought the truth to light after more than a decade of silence. October 2012, Interstate 70, Colorado. Carol Henderson drove home from her shift at the Lakewood manufacturing plant with the radio on low. It was past midnight. The highway was empty. The only sound was the hum of tires on asphalt, and the faint murmur of talk radio filling the silence. She had worked the night shift for 11 years. Same factory, same route home, same empty highway at the same empty hour. It was a rhythm she had learned to live with. Work, drive, sleep, repeat. A life built around the absence of the person who should have been there. The radio host's voice cut through her thoughts. Tonight, we're continuing our series on lost voices. Archival recordings that were never delivered, never heard, sitting in forgotten databases for years. This next one is from 2001. We don't know who the caller was. We don't know who they were trying to reach, but someone out there might recognize this voice. Carol's hands tightened on the steering wheel. A crackling sound. Static. Then a voice. Young, female, shaking. "Mom, if you're hearing this, I don't know if you'll get this. I tried calling, but it's not going through. I'm in a car. A man offered me a ride. I thought it was safe, but we're on the highway, and I don't know where we're going. We just passed a sign for River Creek. I think it said Route 17. Mom, I'm scared. I love you. If you get this, please." The recording cut off abruptly. Carol's foot hit the brake. The car swerved, skidded, came to a stop on the shoulder of the highway. Carol sat frozen, hands shaking, heart pounding so hard she could hear it over the sound of the radio. That voice. She knew that voice. Danielle, her daughter, missing since October 2001. 11 years ago. Listed as a probable runaway after the police found no evidence of foul play, no signs of struggle, no indication she had been taken against her will. But Carol had always known, had known in her bones that Danielle had not run away, that something had happened, that her daughter had tried to reach her. And now after 11 years she had proof. If you have ever heard the voice of someone you thought was lost forever, you know the sensation of time collapsing, of the past and present crashing together in a single impossible moment. Carol pulled out her phone with shaking hands, dialed 911, told the operator she had just heard her daughter's voice on the radio, told them her daughter had been missing since 2001. Told them she needed to talk to someone about a cold case immediately. Gave them the name, Danielle Henderson. Told them to please send someone now. October 2001, 11 years earlier, Boulder, Colorado. Danielle Henderson was 22 years old and 3 months away from graduating with a degree in library science when she took a part-time job at the University of Colorado Boulder Library. The pay was decent, the hours were flexible, and she liked the quiet. Most nights, her shift ended at 11. She would lock up the reference section, check out with her supervisor, and walk across campus to the bus stop on Broadway. On October 12, 2001, her shift ran late. A student had spilled coffee on a cart of returned books. Danielle stayed to clean up and reshelve. By the time she finished, it was 11:15. She grabbed her bag, locked the library doors, walked across the dark campus toward the bus stop. It had started to rain, A light drizzle that made the sidewalks slick and the street lights blur. Danielle pulled her jacket tighter and walked faster. She was supposed to catch the 11:20 bus. If she missed it, the next one did not come until midnight. She reached the bus stop at 11:18. The digital display above the bench blinked. Next bus, 12:03 a.m. Danielle's stomach sank. She had missed it. Somehow the schedule had changed, and she had not noticed. She stood under the shelter watching the rain fall harder. Checked her phone. No messages, no missed calls. She could call her mother, ask for a ride. But Carol worked the night shift at the factory, and would not be home until after 1 in the morning. Danielle decided to wait. An hour was not that long. She had homework in her bag, could read, could stay dry under the shelter. But the rain kept coming, harder now. The wind picked up. The temperature dropped. By 11:30, Danielle was shivering. The bus shelter was not keeping the rain out anymore. Water pooled on the bench, dripped from the roof. She looked around, saw a gas station 2 blocks away. Lights on, open 24 hours. Better to wait there, warmer, dry. She ran across the street, dodging puddles, and pushed through the glass doors of the station. The fluorescent lights were harsh after the darkness outside. A clerk behind the counter glanced up, then went back to his phone. Danielle stood near the magazine rack, tried to look like she was browsing, checked the time. 11:40. 20 minutes until the bus. A man walked in, 40s maybe? Business casual clothes, clean cut. He grabbed a coffee from the machine near the counter. Paid, glanced at Danielle. He asked if she was waiting for the bus. Danielle nodded and said she had missed the last one. The man told her the buses were on strike that night. Said he had seen it on the news. Transit workers had walked off the job that afternoon. No buses running until at least tomorrow. Danielle's heart sank. She pulled out her phone and searched for news. Found the article. Bus drivers' union strike. Service suspended indefinitely. The man took a sip of his coffee and asked where she was headed. Danielle told him Table Mesa in South Boulder. The man said he was going that direction and could give her a ride if she wanted. Danielle hesitated. Her mother's voice echoed in her mind. Never get in a car with strangers. But this man did not look dangerous. He was well dressed, calm, had just bought coffee like a normal person, and it was pouring rain, and she had no other way to get home. Danielle looked at the rain hammering against the windows, looked at her phone. No ride-share apps in 2001. No easy alternative. She thanked him and said yes. They walked out to the parking lot. The man's car was a dark sedan, clean. A child's car seat was buckled in the back. Danielle felt herself relax slightly. A man with a kid, a family man. Safe. She opened the back door, slid into the seat behind the driver. The man got in, started the engine, pulled out of the gas station parking lot. He asked if she went to CU. Danielle said yes. Senior year. Asked what she was studying. She told him library science. He said that was nice work. Quiet. They drove through Boulder. The rain was coming down in sheets now. The windshield wipers worked overtime. Danielle watched the familiar streets pass by. The campus, the coffee shops she knew, the intersections she walked through every day. Then the man turned onto the highway. Danielle frowned and told him Table Mesa was the other way. The man said he knew a shortcut. Said it was faster this way. But they were heading east, away from Boulder, away from her apartment. Danielle's chest tightened. She asked him to just take Broadway. Said she would rather stick to the main roads. The man did not answer, just kept driving. They passed the green highway sign. Interstate 70 East. Next exit 12 miles. Danielle's pulse started to race. She told him this was not the right way, asked him to turn around. The man glanced at her in the rearview mirror. His expression had changed. No longer friendly, just blank. She told him again to turn around. Her voice was firmer now. A soft click echoed through the car. The door locks engaged. Danielle grabbed the door handle, pulled. It did not open. Let me out. The man kept driving. Danielle's hands were shaking. She pulled out her phone, tried to stay calm, tried not to let him see the panic rising in her chest. She dialed her mother's number, held the phone to her ear. It rang once, twice, then went to a recorded message saying the wireless customer was not available. Danielle hung up, tried again. Same message, no signal, or Carol's phone was off, or something was wrong with the network. She opened her mouth to try calling 911, then stopped. If she called 911, the man would hear, would know she was trying to get help, might do something worse. She needed to be smart. Needed to leave evidence without letting him know. Danielle switched to voicemail, dialed her mother's number, left a message, kept her voice low, calm, tried not to let the fear bleed through. Mom, if you're hearing this, I don't know if you'll get this. I tried calling, but it's not going through. I'm in a car. A man offered me a ride. I thought it was safe, but we're on the highway and I don't know where we're going. She looked out the window, saw a green sign flash past. River Creek, 3 miles, Route 17, next right. We just passed a sign for River Creek. I think it said Route 17. Mom, I'm scared. I love you. If you get this, please. The man's eyes snapped to the rearview mirror. What are you doing? Danielle dropped the phone, shoved it between the seat cushions. Nothing. I'm not. Give me your phone. I don't have it. The man pulled over to the shoulder, put the car in park, turned around. Give me your phone. Danielle pressed herself against the door. I left it at the library. I don't have it. The man stared at her, then reached between the seats, found the phone wedged in the cushion, pulled it out, looked at the screen, saw the call log, saw the voicemail in progress. He ended the call, rolled down the window, threw the phone out into the rain. You shouldn't have done that. Danielle was crying now. Could not help it. Could not stay calm anymore. Please, just let me go. I won't tell anyone. I promise. The man put the car back in gear, pulled onto the highway. It's too late for that. For women who have been taken, we know that moment when you realize the person you trusted is the person who will hurt you, that the friendly face was a mask, that the danger you were taught to fear had been standing right in front of you all along. Danielle sat in the back seat as the car drove deeper into the night, watched the rain blur the windows, watched the mile markers tick past. River Creek, Route 17, Interstate 70 East. She repeated the names in her mind, tried to memorize them, tried to hold on to something that might help someone find her later, if there was a later. The voicemail she had left was still out there, somewhere in the phone network waiting to be delivered. But her mother's phone had not connected. The message had not gone through. Danielle did not know that the message had been recorded, had been stored on a local server, had been marked as undeliverable and filed away in a database that no one would check. She did not know that in 11 years that message would surface, would be heard, would be the key to finding her. All she knew was that she was in a car with a stranger heading east into the darkness, and no one knew where she was. The man drove for another hour, turned off the highway onto a rural road. No street lights, no houses, just darkness and rain. Finally, he pulled into a gravel driveway. A small house sat at the end, isolated, surrounded by trees. He turned off the engine, looked at Danielle in the rearview mirror. You look like her, he said quietly. Like who? My daughter. She would have been your age if she'd lived. Danielle's blood went cold. I'm not your daughter. I know, but you could be for a little while, just until I figure things out. He got out of the car, opened Danielle's door, told her to come inside. Danielle did not move. The man reached in, grabbed her arm, pulled her out into the rain. She screamed, fought, tried to run. He was stronger, dragged her toward the house, unlocked the door, shoved her inside. The door slammed shut. And for Danielle Henderson, the world went dark. October 2001, the day after Danielle disappeared. Carol Henderson woke at 7:00 in the morning to silence. She had worked the night shift at the factory, and had not gotten home until after 1. Had fallen asleep immediately, exhausted. She walked to the kitchen, made coffee, expected to see Danielle at the table, studying or reading, the way she always was in the mornings. The apartment was empty. Carol checked Danielle's bedroom. The bed had not been slept in. The backpack that usually sat by the door was missing. Carol's chest tightened. She pulled out her phone, called Danielle's number. It went straight to a generic voicemail saying the number was not in service. Carol called again. Same message. She told herself not to panic. Danielle was 22, an adult. Maybe she had stayed at a friend's place. Maybe her phone had died. But Danielle always called. Always let Carol know where she was. Carol called the university library, asked if Danielle had come in for her shift that morning. The supervisor said she was not scheduled until that evening. Asked if everything was okay. Carol said she was not sure, asked what time Danielle had left the night before. Around 11:15, the supervisor said. She had stayed late to clean up a spill. Carol hung up, tried Danielle's phone again. Still nothing. By noon, Carol called the police. The officer who took the report was polite, but not particularly concerned. Carol's daughter was an adult, had been gone less than 24 hours. There was no sign of foul play. It was possible she just needed some space. Carol insisted Danielle would have called. The officer suggested giving it another day. If she did not turn up, Carol should call back. Carol waited. Called Danielle's friends. None of them had seen her. Called the library again. Danielle had not shown up for her shift. By the second day, the police opened a missing persons case, interviewed Carol, interviewed Danielle's coworkers, checked her bank account, no recent activity, checked her apartment, nothing missing except what she would have had with her. By the third day, Detective Alan Price took over the case. He was thorough, asked about Danielle's state of mind, asked if she had been depressed, asked if there were problems at home. Carol said no. Danielle was fine. She was happy. She was graduating in 3 months. Price asked about boyfriends, anyone she might have left with. Carol said no. Danielle was not seeing anyone. Price checked Danielle's phone records. The last call had been placed at 11:42 p.m. on October 12th. To Carol's number, duration 0 seconds. No connection. Price told Carol that Danielle had tried to call her, but the call had not gone through. Asked why not. Carol said she did not know. Could be a lot of reasons. Bad signal, network error, phone died. Price made notes. Said they would keep looking. But he needed Carol to prepare for the possibility that Danielle had left on her own. Young adults sometimes did that. Started over somewhere new. Carol said not Danielle. She would not do that. Price said he hoped Carol was right. For parents whose children vanish without a trace, we know the particular hell of not knowing, of living in the space between hope and despair, of waiting for news that never comes. Weeks passed. Price followed every lead. Checked surveillance footage from the campus. Found nothing useful. Checked with bus drivers. None remembered seeing Danielle. Checked local hospitals, shelters, morgues. Nothing. After 3 months, the case went cold. Price called Carol to tell her. Said they were keeping the case open. But without new information, there was not much more they could do. Carol said Danielle was out there. She knew it. Price said he hoped so. Carol quit her job at the factory to search full-time. Printed flyers, posted them all over Boulder, drove to nearby towns and posted them there, too. Called every tip line, checked every website. Found nothing. By the 6-month mark, Carol had run through her savings, took a job at a different factory, night shift again. The pay was slightly better, and the hours allowed her to search during the day. She called Detective Price every week, asked if there were updates. The answer was always the same. No new leads, no credible sightings. The case remained open but inactive. Carol celebrated Danielle's 23rd birthday alone. Bought a cake, lit candles, sang happy birthday to an empty room. Did it again on her 24th and 25th and every year after that. She never stopped hoping, never stopped believing that someday, somehow, Danielle would come home. October 2001, the first night in the house. Danielle sat on a narrow bed in a small room with a single window covered by heavy curtains. The door was locked from the outside. She could hear the man moving around in another part of the house. She had tried the window. It was nailed shut. Had tried the door. Solid wood, no give. She was trapped. Danielle sat on the bed and tried to think, tried to stay calm, tried to figure out what to do. The man had not hurt her, had brought her inside, shown her to this room, and told her to stay quiet, had locked the door, and left. That was hours ago. It was dark now. She had no idea what time it was. Danielle heard footsteps in the hallway, a key turning in the lock. The door opened. The man stood in the doorway holding a tray of food. Told her she should eat. Danielle did not move. He set the tray on the floor. Said he was not going to hurt her. Said he just needed her to stay here for a while. Danielle asked why. The man said she looked like his daughter Emma. She had died 3 years ago. Car accident. She was 19. Danielle said she was not Emma. The man said he knew, but when he had seen her waiting at the gas station, he thought. He stopped, looked away. Said he had not been planning this. Said it just happened. Danielle begged him to let her go. Said her mother was looking for her. Said the police were looking. The man said no one was looking. Said he had checked the news, said they thought she had run away. Danielle felt tears burning. Said she had not run away. The man said he knew, but that was what they thought. So she was safe here. No one would find her. He left, locked the door again. Danielle sat in the darkness and cried. If you have ever been held against your will, you know that time stops having meaning, that days blur together, that hope becomes a fragile thing you have to fight to hold on to. Days turned into weeks. The man, his name was Robert, though Danielle only learned that much later, kept her locked in the room, brought her food 3 times a day, let her use the bathroom under supervision, did not hurt her physically, but would not let her leave. He talked to her sometimes, told her about Emma, about how she had loved reading, how she had wanted to be a teacher, how the accident had happened on a rainy night, just like the night he had taken Danielle. Danielle listened, tried to build a connection, tried to find a way to convince him to let her go. It did not work. Weeks turned into months. Danielle marked time by counting meals, by watching the light change through the small gap at the bottom of the curtain. She thought about escape constantly, planned, watched for opportunities. But Robert was careful, never left the door unlocked, never left her alone outside the room. After 6 months, Danielle stopped fighting, stopped planning, just existed. Robert noticed, started leaving the door unlocked during the day. Started letting her move around the house. Started trusting her not to run. Danielle did not run because the house was in the middle of nowhere, because she had no phone, no car, no way to reach anyone, because running meant dying in the wilderness. So she stayed? And years passed. March 2012, 11 years after Danielle disappeared, a telecommunications company called Mountain West Wireless filed for bankruptcy. The company had been struggling for years, unable to compete with larger carriers. Its infrastructure was outdated. Its customer base had shrunk. When the company dissolved, its assets were liquidated. Towers were sold, equipment was auctioned, and the digital archives, thousands of voicemails, text messages, call logs dating back to the early 2000s, were sold to a data archiving firm called Legacy Digital Solutions. Legacy Digital Solutions specialized in buying old telecom data. They resold it to universities for research, to documentary filmmakers looking for authentic period audio, to media companies building sound libraries. The Mountain West Wireless Archive contained over 50,000 voice messages that had never been delivered. Messages marked undeliverable due to network errors, dead numbers, or system glitches. Most were mundane, wrong numbers, spam, people calling themselves to test voicemail. But buried in the archive were messages that mattered. Calls from people who had died before the message could be delivered. Calls from missing persons whose cases had gone cold. Calls that had been sent into the void and forgotten. Legacy Digital Solutions did not listen to the messages, just cataloged them by date and metadata, sold them in bulk. In April 2012, a radio station in Denver bought a package of archived messages for a news segment called Lost Voices. The concept was simple. Play undelivered voicemails from the past. Let listeners hear forgotten moments. See if anyone recognized the voices. The segment was popular. People called in claiming to recognize voices. Some turned out to be correct. Some were coincidence. On October 15, 2012, exactly 11 years after Danielle Henderson disappeared, the radio station played a message from the archive dated October 12, 2001. Caller ID showed a number that no longer existed. Recipient number also disconnected. The host introduced it the way he introduced all of them. Said this next one was from 2001. Said they did not know who the caller was or who they were trying to reach, but someone out there might recognize the voice. And then he played it. The message crackled through thousands of radios across Colorado. Most people kept driving, kept listening, moved on to the next segment. But one person slammed on the brakes in the middle of Interstate 70. Carol Henderson sat in her car on the shoulder of the highway with her hands shaking and her heart pounding. Pulled out her phone, called 911, told the operator she had just heard her daughter's voice on the radio. Said her daughter had been missing for 11 years, said her name was Danielle Henderson. Said she needed to reopen the case. Said please. The 911 operator took down the information, said someone would call her back. Carol sat in her car and cried. After 11 years of silence, she had finally heard her daughter's voice, and Danielle had been trying to reach her all along. If you're still watching at this point, drop a comment with "I'm still here." Let's see who's truly following this shocking story. Your engagement helps us keep bringing you these incredible cases. October 2012, the house where Danielle had been held for 11 years. Robert Callahan was 53 years old and had been living alone in a house 30 miles outside of Pueblo, Colorado since 1998. He had bought the property after his wife left him, had lived there quietly, worked from home doing freelance accounting, kept to himself. In 2001, he had taken Danielle Henderson from a gas station in Boulder, had driven her to his house, had kept her there for 11 years. He had not planned it, had not intended to kidnap anyone, but he had seen her waiting in the rain, and she had looked so much like Emma, his daughter, who had died in a car accident 3 years earlier, that something in him had broken. He had told himself it would be temporary, that he would let her go after a few days, after the initial search died down. But days became weeks, weeks became months, and eventually letting her go became impossible. Danielle was 33 now, had spent half her life in this house, had stopped trying to escape years ago, lived in a kind of resigned captivity that Robert told himself was not really captivity at all. He had never hurt her, had given her books, let her watch TV, treated her well, had convinced himself that she was better off here, that the outside world had forgotten her anyway. On October 16, 2012, Robert was drinking coffee in the kitchen when he heard vehicles approaching, multiple vehicles, fast. He looked out the window, saw police cars pulling into the driveway, saw officers getting out, saw them spreading around the property. Robert's blood went cold. He walked to Danielle's room. She was reading, looked up when he entered, asked what was happening. Robert told her the police were here. Danielle stood up slowly, asked what he meant. Robert said he did not know how, but they had found them. Outside, a voice called through a megaphone. Robert Callahan. This is the Pueblo County Sheriff's Department. Come out with your hands up. Robert looked at Danielle, at the woman who had been his prisoner for 11 years. Told her he was sorry. Then he walked to the front door, opened it, stepped outside with his hands raised. Officers swarmed him, pushed him to the ground, handcuffed him. The voice called again. Danielle Henderson. If you are in there, we are coming in. You are safe. Danielle stood in the hallway, watched through the open door as officers entered the house, guns drawn, moving carefully. One of them saw her, lowered his weapon, asked if she was Danielle Henderson. She nodded. The officer told her she was safe now. Told her her mother was waiting for her. Danielle's legs gave out. She sank to the floor. After 11 years, someone had finally found her. Detective Alan Price had been working missing persons cases for 23 years when Carol Henderson called 911, claiming she had heard her daughter's voice on the radio. He had worked Danielle's case back in 2001. Had kept the file on his desk for years, even after it went cold. Had always wondered what had happened to the young woman who had vanished after a library shift. When dispatch forwarded Carol's call to him, Price pulled the old file immediately. Danielle Henderson, missing since October 12, 2001. Last seen leaving University of Colorado Boulder Library at approximately 11:15 p.m. No contact with family or friends since disappearance. Case status cold. Price listened to the recording Carol described, called the radio station, asked for a copy of the archived voicemail. The station sent it within the hour. Price played it 3 times, listened to every word, made notes. River Creek, Route 17, highway, a man, a car. He called the station's technical department, asked for the metadata on the recording, everything they had, phone number, timestamp, cell tower data, anything. The technician said they had bought it from an archive service, said he would see what came with it. The file arrived 20 minutes later. Price opened it. Caller ID 30355584772. Time 11:42 p.m. October 12, 2001. Duration 38 seconds. Cell tower, Mountain West Tower 471, Route 17 Corridor, Pueblo County. Recipient number 303555923. Carol Henderson's old phone number. Price felt his pulse quicken. The call had been made. The message had been recorded, but it had never been delivered due to a network error. For 11 years, the evidence had been sitting in a server, waiting. Price traced the cell tower location. Route 17 Corridor in Pueblo County put the call approximately 30 miles southeast of Pueblo. He pulled up property records for that area. Found dozens of rural properties along Route 17. Narrowed the search by looking for single male owners who had lived there since at least 2001. Found 12 matches. Ran background checks on all 12. Looked for anyone with a history that might indicate violent behavior, obsession, or psychological issues. One name stood out. Robert James Callahan, age 53, purchased property at 4782 County Road 17 in 1998, lived alone, no criminal record but had filed multiple police reports in 1998, 1999 related to his daughter's death. Emma Callahan, age 19, killed in car accident August 1998. Price looked at the date. Emma had died 3 years before Danielle disappeared. He pulled up photos of Emma Callahan from the accident report. Young woman, blonde, blue eyes. Pulled up the missing persons photo of Danielle Henderson. Young woman, blonde, blue eyes. The resemblance was striking. Price called the Pueblo County Sheriff's Department, told them he needed to request a welfare check on a property at County Road 17. Said he had reason to believe a missing person might be there. The sheriff asked what case. Price told him Danielle Henderson, missing since 2001, said he had cell tower data placing her in that area the night she disappeared. The sheriff said they would send a unit. Price said he was coming down. Told them not to approach until he got there. Said if she was there, she had been held for 11 years. They needed to do this carefully. Price drove to Pueblo, met the sheriff's deputies at a staging area 2 miles from Callahan's property. The sheriff told him they had aerial surveillance, single structure, 1 vehicle in the driveway, no visible movement. Price asked what the plan was. The sheriff said they would surround the property, call him out. If he did not comply, they would breach. Price nodded, told them to go. They moved in quietly. 4 vehicles, 8 officers surrounded the house. Price took the megaphone, called out that this was the Pueblo County Sheriff's Department, told Robert Callahan to come out with his hands up. Silence. Then the front door opened. A man stepped out. 50s, gray hair, hands raised. Officers moved in, pushed him to the ground, handcuffed him. Price walked toward the house, called out again, told Danielle Henderson that if she was in there, they were coming in, told her she was safe. The tactical team entered, cleared room by room. Then one of them called back, said they had her. Price entered the house, walked down a hallway to a small bedroom. A woman sat on the floor, thin, pale, looked older than 33, but younger than the 11 years she had been missing might suggest. She looked up at Price with eyes that had forgotten how to hope. Price asked if she was Danielle Henderson. She nodded. He told her his name, said he had worked her case in 2001, said her mother had been looking for her. Said Carol had heard her voice on the radio, said that was how they found her. Danielle's eyes filled with tears. Asked if her mother was really looking. Price said she was waiting. Asked if Danielle needed medical attention. Danielle said she did not know. Said she thought she was okay. Price asked if she could walk. Danielle stood slowly, steadied herself against the wall, followed Price out of the house. Outside, Carol Henderson was standing behind the police line. She had driven from Denver the moment Price called, had waited for 3 hours while they planned the operation. When Danielle stepped through the door, Carol broke through the line and ran. Danielle? Danielle stopped, stared at the woman running toward her. 11 years. She had spent 11 years locked away, had stopped believing rescue would come, had stopped thinking about the life she used to have, and now her mother was here. Carol wrapped her arms around her daughter, held her so tight Danielle could barely breathe. "You're alive. Oh God, you're alive? I never stopped looking. I never gave up." Danielle stood stiff for a moment. Then slowly her arms came up, held her mother for the first time in 11 years. "Mom," she whispered. "I tried to call you that night. I tried. I know. I heard the message. That's how we found you. If you have ever been separated from someone for so long that you forget what their face looks like, what their voice sounds like, what their embrace feels like, you know that reunion is not simple, that coming back is not the same as never having left." They took Danielle to the hospital, ran tests, found her physically healthy but severely malnourished and suffering from what the psychologists called learned helplessness, a condition that develops when someone is held captive for extended periods. Carol stayed with her through every exam, every interview, every moment. Robert Callahan was charged with kidnapping, false imprisonment, and a dozen other counts. During his interrogation, he was calm, almost resigned. He told detectives he had not planned it. Said he had seen her at the gas station, and she looked so much like Emma, his daughter. Said he just could not let her walk away. Said he knew it sounded insane. Maybe it was. But in that moment, it felt like fate was giving him a second chance. Price told him he had held her for 11 years. Robert said he never hurt her. Said he gave her everything she needed. Books, TV, food. Said he took care of her. Price said he had stolen her life. Robert was quiet for a moment, then said he knew. The trial happened 6 months later. Robert's defense attorney argued diminished capacity due to unresolved grief over his daughter's death. The prosecution argued premeditation based on the fact that Robert had maintained Danielle's captivity for over a decade. The jury took 3 hours to convict him on all counts. At sentencing, Danielle testified, stood in front of the courtroom, and spoke in a voice that was steady despite the years of silence. "You told me I looked like your daughter, that keeping me would help you heal. But you didn't heal. You just transferred your grief onto me. You stole 11 years. You stole my 20s. You stole my education, my career, my relationships, my life. I don't know if you're evil or just broken. Maybe both. But I want you to know that I survived, that I'm still here, and that I'm going to build the life you took from me." Robert looked at her from across the courtroom. "I'm sorry." Danielle's voice did not waver. "I don't forgive you, but I'm not going to let what you did define me." The judge sentenced Robert Callahan to life in prison without possibility of parole. The first 6 months after Danielle's rescue were the hardest. She moved into Carol's apartment in Denver, a small 2-bedroom that felt simultaneously familiar and completely foreign. The walls were covered with photos of Danielle at various ages, photos she did not remember being taken. A timeline of a life that had been frozen in 2001. Carol had kept Danielle's old bedroom exactly as it had been. Textbooks from her senior year still sat on the desk. Clothes from 2001 still hung in the closet. A calendar still showed October 2001. Danielle stood in the doorway and cried. This room belonged to someone else. A 22-year-old college student who no longer existed. Carol said quietly that she could change it. Said they could pack everything up, start fresh. Danielle said no. Said to leave it. Said she just needed time. For survivors who return after extended captivity, we know that freedom does not feel like freedom at first, that the world moves too fast, that choices feel overwhelming, that normal life requires skills you have forgotten or never learned. Danielle struggled with simple things. Going to the grocery store meant being surrounded by strangers. Taking the bus meant trusting a vehicle she could not control. Being alone in a room meant waiting for a door to lock from the outside. Carol tried to help. Tried to give Danielle space while also being present. It was a delicate balance, and they both stumbled frequently. 2 weeks after coming home, Danielle had a panic attack in a restaurant. Too many people, too much noise. She stood up abruptly and walked out. Carol found her sitting on the curb outside, shaking. Danielle whispered that she was sorry. Said she thought she could do this. Carol sat down beside her. Said she did not have to apologize. Said they would go home. Danielle said she felt like she was failing at being normal. Carol told her she was not failing. Said she was healing. Said that takes time. Danielle started seeing a therapist who specialized in long-term captivity. Dr. Sarah Mitchell had worked with hostages, prisoners of war, and other survivors of prolonged trauma. The sessions were slow, painful. Danielle talked about the 11 years, about the isolation, about how Robert had talked to her like she was Emma, about how she had eventually stopped fighting because fighting meant losing hope and losing hope meant dying inside. She told Dr. Mitchell she had become someone else. Not Emma, not Danielle, just someone existing in between. Dr. Mitchell asked who she wanted to be now. Danielle said she had to figure out who Danielle was because the person she was at 22 was gone, and she could not be her again. That became the central question of Danielle's recovery. Not who she had been, but who she would become. She started small, got a library card. The first book she checked out was about psychological recovery from trauma. She read it cover to cover in 2 days. Started taking walks, short ones at first, around the block, then longer, to the park, to the coffee shop. Started cooking with Carol. Simple meals, pasta, soup, things that required focus and produced tangible results. Started writing. Not about the captivity. Not yet. Just observations, thoughts, fragments of the person she was becoming. 6 months after her rescue, Danielle enrolled in a community college psychology course, just one class, Introduction to Trauma Psychology. The professor talked about resilience, about post-traumatic growth, about how some people who experience extreme trauma eventually find meaning in their suffering. Danielle stayed after class, told the professor she had personal experience with long-term captivity. The professor looked at her carefully. Said she recognized her. Said she was Danielle Henderson. Danielle said yes. The professor said she had followed the case. Said she was glad Danielle was here. Danielle said she wanted to help people. People like her, but she did not know how yet. The professor told her to start by helping herself. Said the rest would follow. After the trial, Danielle moved into her own apartment, small, affordable, hers. Carol helped her move in. They painted the walls together, picked out furniture, made it feel like home. Carol asked if she was sure she was ready. Danielle said no, but she needed to try. Living alone was terrifying at first. Every sound made Danielle jump. Every shadow looked like Robert. She slept with lights on for the first month, but gradually, slowly, it became easier. She learned to be alone without being trapped. Learned that locked doors kept danger out instead of keeping her in. 2 years after being found, Danielle spoke at a conference for families of missing persons. She told them she was 22 when she was taken, 35 now. Said she lost 11 years, but she was still here. Said she wanted other families to know that hope was not foolish, that searching was not pointless, that sometimes, against all odds, people do come home. She told them her mother never gave up, worked night shifts for 11 years to support herself while searching during the day, called the police every week, never accepted that Danielle was gone. She told them that when a voicemail she left in 2001 finally surfaced in 2012, Carol recognized her voice immediately. Even after 11 years of silence, she said that was what saved her. Not the technology, not the police, not luck. Her mother's refusal to give up. Carol sat in the audience and cried. After the conference, people approached Danielle. Other families, other survivors asked how she had coped, how she had rebuilt, how she had found strength. Danielle realized she had something to offer. Not answers exactly, but understanding, proof that survival was possible. 3 years after being found, Danielle started working at a nonprofit called Finding Home, an organization that helped families of long-term missing persons. She answered phones, offered support, told people that she understood, that she had been there, that coming home was possible. She also started speaking publicly about the dangers of outdated telecommunications infrastructure, about how her voicemail had sat in a server for 11 years because of a network error, about how many other messages might be lost in similar digital graveyards. She told reporters that technology fails, systems fail, but people do not have to. Said her message was lost for 11 years, but her mother was not. Said Carol kept searching and eventually the truth found its way to her. 5 years after being found, Danielle published a book, not a memoir of captivity, but a guide for survivors of long-term trauma, practical advice, coping strategies, resources, the things she wished someone had told her when she first came home. The book was called After the Door Opens, Rebuilding Life After Captivity. In the introduction, she wrote that the book was not about what happened to her. Said there were enough books about trauma. Said this was about what happened after, about the first shower she took alone, about the first time she slept without nightmares, about the first day she laughed without feeling guilty. She wrote that recovery was not linear. Some days you move forward, some days you move back, some days you just exist and that is enough. She wrote that if you were reading this because you survived something terrible, you should know you were not broken, not ruined, not less than you were. You were different. And different was not the same as damaged. You survived. Now you got to decide what came next. The book became a resource for survivors across the country. Danielle received letters from people who had been held captive, who had escaped abusive situations, who had survived trauma they thought would destroy them. She answered every letter, reminded each person that they were not alone, that recovery was possible, that life after trauma could still be full. If this story reminds you that some missing persons do come home, that mothers who refuse to give up sometimes get their daughters back, that 11 years is not too long to hope, remember this. Robert Callahan stole 11 years of Danielle Henderson's life. Kept her locked in the house because she reminded him of a daughter he had lost. Convinced himself that what he was doing was love instead of captivity. But Danielle survived, found her way back, rebuilt her life. And the voicemail she left in a moment of terror, the message that sat undelivered in a forgotten server for 11 years, finally reached the person it was meant for. Someone is still missing. Someone is still searching. Don't stop looking. Don't stop hoping. Because Danielle Henderson came home after 11 years, built a new life, found purpose in her pain, helped others find their way back too. And her story belongs to every mother who refuses to give up. That's the end of today's case. If you made it this far, thank you for being part of this journey. Danielle's story is a testament to the power of hope, the strength of a mother's love, and the resilience of the human spirit. Before you go, I need 3 things from you. First, hit that like button if this story moved you. Second, drop a comment below telling me what you thought about Danielle's incredible survival and recovery. And third, subscribe to 72-Hour True Crime and turn on notifications so you never miss another case like this. We bring you real stories of survival, justice, and the unbreakable bonds between people who refuse to give up on each other. I'll see you in the next one. Stay safe out there.